Hi, I'm Brittany Beattie with Creating Keepsakes. Today I'll be showing you how to create a chair cover that will serve as a tool caddy while you're at a crop. The first thing you want to do is find your fabric. You'll need 2 panels that fit the length of your chair. For your specific chair you may want to measure it, and for most chairs though, and like the one I did, I used a panel that was 14 inches by 46 inches, and you'll want 2 of those. You may also want to get some interfacing depending on the kind of fabric you use. If it's lighter weight, you'll want the interfacing to be able to back it up and reinforce it a little bit. Then once you have your 2 fabric panels that are 14 by 46, you'll stitch them together. And I've already done that with this one, so you'll see that I have the 2 wrong sides together and then I sewed it around the edges. And as you sew, pay attention to how far away from the edge of your fabric you want the needle to be. I like to measure first the width of the bias tape and just make sure that as I wrap it around the edge of the fabric that I will have enough room to cover up the stitching as I go across. So I'm using an extra wide bias tape, which means I have a pretty good amount of room, but again, just measure first the width of your bias tape that you'll be using and make sure that the placement of your needle is close enough to the edge of the fabric that it will be covered when you're all done sewing. Once you have your panels sewn together, you'll next want to gather your tools. For me, those frequently used items are things like a trimmer and scissors, some adhesive. I like to keep a generic stamp set with the alphabet and a generic ink color that I can use on most pages. For me, it's brown. I also gather some punches in basic shapes along with a punch for my thicker things like the crocodile. And a tip for all of our punches that have these wider handles, that's going to take up more space in your caddy. So what I like to do is just bring them together and wrap a rubber band around the edges of the punch to conserve more space. Or like the crocodile, I took some ribbon and wrapped it around and tied it together because a rubber band wasn't quite strong enough. Once you have all of your tools, you want to start arranging them on your panel, looking at the left-hand side and the right-hand side of the panel to be able to start arranging them, making sure you're leaving enough room in the center where it will actually cover the seat so you'll have room to sit and then your tools will be sitting on either edge. Once you have all your tools in place, make sure that you've put enough space in between each of them that you'll have room to sew your pocket down, and adjust them a little bit if needed to give yourself enough room. After you have them in place, you'll want to start measuring each of your tools to determine the pocket size that you'll need. Of course, you'll be measuring the length and the width of your tool. On the height, I like to leave enough room that I'll easily be able to grab the tool and won't have to reach way down inside a pocket. And then you'll also want to take into consideration the depth of your tool. So for example, a punch about this size is going to need a lot less depth than a punch that's this size. And you'll want to, as you measure, I like to just get a little bit of an idea. I take my measuring tape out, go around probably the thickest part of it, measure off to the side, leaving a 1/4 inch or so of room to be able to wrap the fabric around so I don't see the edge of it, and also about a 1/4 inch to put my stitching down. So as you start to add all those components together, you'll get the width that will be right for your specific tool. So for example, on this punch, as I lay it down, I have enough room that I'll be able to wrap the sides, under, and the bottom, and I'll also have enough depth to go around the tool. So once you have your pieces measured and cut, you'll next want to sew the top edge. That's going to make sure that the top of your pocket has a nice clean edge. You could also add bias tape to the top instead if you want a more finished look on the top. I like to just wrap them over and secure them on the back. So I have this piece here that has the edge all sewn. The next thing again, start pinning the sides, and as you pin, make sure that you'll be able to take the pin out as you sew around. Then once you have all of your edges pinned, you can lay it down. Again, make sure that the tool will fit inside there snugly, but not too snug. And if you have a deep one, you'll want to start pleating the edges a little bit so that you have that extra length gathered up under the bottom, and those little pleats will help make sure that your tool will sit inside there nicely. So you can see here the various levels that I have of pleating for each of my pockets depending on the width of the tool that will be held inside. This area right here that will just be holding an ink pad, I just simply put 2 pleats that are really small pleats around the edges to contain that extra piece of fabric. For this pocket right here that will be holding a large punch, I've put in several pleats throughout to be able to create that depth that I'll need to put my punch inside. On this particular pocket, I wanted to house 2 smaller punches. I had some extra material, and rather than pleating on the outsides, I decided to fold it in together on the inside and pleat it. And it's kind of a faux looking pocket because this inside is actually just one large pocket, but that little pleat helps it give that appearance of being 2 small pockets. Once you have all your pockets sewn, the last thing that you'll want to do is put a nice finishing touch around the edge. I gathered some extra wide bias tape, wrapped that around my project, and then was able to just stitch it along the edges so that front and back I have a nice clean look that goes all the way around my project. The last thing then is to just gather the tools, and you can start putting them in the nice pockets that are designed specifically for your favorite tools. And once you put them all in, you can set the chair or set the cover over the chair, and you'll have the perfect tool caddy for all of your cropping.